Mr. Reiner, you have a constitutional and statutory right to a speedy arraignment. Your counsel is requesting that your arraignment be continued to January 7, 2026. Do you waive your right to a speedy arraignment so that your arraignment can be heard on January 7, 2026? And does counsel join in the waiver?
I join, Your Honor.
The court finds that the defendant has made a knowing and intelligent waiver of his right to a speedy arraignment, and that his counsel joins in that waiver. Matter set January 7, 2026 for arraignment in this department. Bail to stand at no bail. Anything further on that case?
Not by the defense, Your Honor.
Anything further?
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Nick Reiner's attorney, Alan Jackson, was speaking to reporters just moments ago.
Just have a couple of quick words. First of all, and most importantly, this is a devastating tragedy that has befallen the Reiner family. We all recognize that. Our hearts go out to the entire Reiner family. There are very, very complex and serious issues that are associated with this case. These need to be thoroughly but very carefully dealt with and examined and looked at and analyzed. And we ask that during this process you allow the system to move forward in the way that it was designed to move forward, not with a rush to judgment, not with jumping to conclusions, but with restraint and with dignity and with the respect that this system and this process deserves and that the family deserves. So with that, we are set for January 7th for an arraignment. That's the next court date. And that's all I have to say at this point. There may be more at some other point, but today we're going to rest on where we stand procedurally, which is this was a continuance of an arraignment. Nothing happened today substantively. We'll be back for an arraignment in the same department on the 7th of January. And we'll see you then.
All right, I want to bring in John Miller, CNN's chief law enforcement and intelligence analyst. John, there we heard from Alan Jackson, the defense attorney for Nick Reiner. This was the first court appearance for Nick. Obviously, we did not see him, though we did see the judge and heard her address him, and we saw his attorney as well. Why didn't we see Nick Reiner?
Well, I think that was the issue yesterday, was he hadn't been medically cleared to go to court. So if he was in court today, why we didn't see him, I don't know, but it's entirely possible that he was there via video from the LA jail where he was being held. And that way he could participate in the proceedings without having to be medically cleared.
I want to also bring in Areva Martin. Let's talk about the 2 counts of first-degree murder that he has been charged with for the fatal stabbing deaths of his father, Rob Reiner, his mother, Michelle Singer Reiner, and the special circumstances and weapons allegations in particular. The charges include the special circumstance such as multiple murders and a special allegation that a deadly weapon, a knife, was used. That can actually increase the potential penalties that he will be facing once he's arraigned January 7th. Just talk about that in particular, these charges.
Yeah, very serious felony charges. As you said, double murder charges with special circumstances because 2 individuals were actually killed and because a weapon, i.e. in this case, a knife, was used. We know in the state of California, these charges carry with them the potential for, if there is a conviction, of life in prison without the possibility of parole, and even gives the prosecutors an opportunity to pursue the death penalty. We heard from the prosecuting attorney yesterday saying that they had not made a decision about whether they will pursue the death penalty in this case. But again, that is a very serious and real possibility. We haven't heard a whole lot about the evidence that the police have been able to obtain to date. We've heard nothing about a potential motive other than the fact that there was some pretty violent, I guess, argument that took place the night before the stabbings occurred. But we are still waiting to hear what the evidence is that the police has amassed and a possible motive for this incredible tragedy.
And John, we did hear Alan Jackson, Nick Reiner's attorney, begin his statement before reporters, acknowledging just as much that this is a horrific tragedy. And he went on to say that we should not rush to judgment or jump to conclusions about the circumstances leading up to this tragedy. What does that tell you about the strategy the defense may be working on here?
Well, that tells us that Alan Jackson is slowing this down. The idea that his client did not enter a plea today, and I believe he was in court, the idea that he postponed the arraignment, which is a very simple procedure. They're continuing without bail. It's where you enter a plea. Means that he is in major strategy mode here, which is he going to order up psychological examinations? Court ordered, defense ordered, prosecution ordered. We may see a lot of that as a pathway towards defense. But where we are now is he pushes the arraignment off to January 7th. So, that's going to be a week after, Christmas, New Year's, all that. And we still haven't seen, the charging document that would be presented at that case that outlines what the state has. After that, within 14 days of the arrest in the state of California, you go to a preliminary hearing, and Areva can tell you a preliminary hearing is like a mini trial. You can end up not just learning facts, but you may present witnesses. You may have the opportunity to cross-examine them if you're the defense. That's where we would learn the most. But Alan Jackson, as the defense lawyer, has the right to waive the 14 days. We could see that pushed back as well, as what he's doing as a defense lawyer is trying to get his hands on as much discovery as possible, get his experts lined up, find a way towards his core defense strategy, and have the process move a little bit slower while he does that. Since he knows his client isn't getting bail, isn't getting out, he can use that time to his advantage.
And how much time does he have, Areva? At a certain point, does the judge step in here? And I'm asking this because he's saying don't jump to conclusions, don't rush to judgment. What he's facing is a very public and well-known family that has been very transparent and also very open about their son's struggle, as he has been as well, with mental health and addiction, homelessness. So how does that factor in?
Well, the reality is the public has a voracious appetite to get this information, get information about the evidence that the police has, to see what that charging document looks like. But the court system doesn't work on the same time frame as the court of public opinion. Cases like this often take months, if not years, before there's an actual hearing that takes place. So I would not expect to see something happen very quickly in this case, because this is a complex case that's going to involve so many emotional issues that you don't have when you have someone that's murdered, say by a stranger, or if this was a break-in, or if this was some kind of random crime. But this is the individuals who have been killed, the victims here. This is their son. So you have to think about the emotional issues that are going to be at play in this case. The fact that Alan Jackson, a very well-known criminal defense attorney in California, is representing him already speaks volumes about the fact that he's going to have the best defense that money can buy in this case. So I wouldn't expect to see this case move very quickly. I think it's going to be a very methodical process. Alan Jackson is not going to be in any rush to get this case before the court, particularly if the evidence is not favorable to his client. So it's to his advantage to take advantage of the time that normally it takes for cases like this to proceed through the criminal justice system.
All right, we've already heard a lot of detail and firsthand accounts of what many described as erratic behavior from him, and real tension that was displayed between him and his parents, and his father in particular, at a party the night before at Conan O'Brien's home. John and Areva, thank you. Stand by. I do want to bring in Stephanie Elam, who was in the hearing and joins me from outside the court. So, Stephanie, Nick was in the courtroom, correct?
He was indeed inside the courtroom, that's correct. He was seated. He was inside of the pinned-in area where they keep the defendants during court hearings, and outside of that, standing in front of him, were his attorneys. But yes, he was there, he was seated. I also heard him speak. He said the issue here was whether or not they were going to continue this arraignment until January 7th. And his attorney, Alan Jackson, as you were just talking about him, he said it was just too soon to do this, and so they wanted to move it. The judge specifically asked Nick Reiner if he was okay with moving the arraignment because he has a right to a speedy arraignment until January 7th. And at that point, I heard Nick Reiner say, "Yes, Your Honor." It was very clear, very calm, very even-keeled voice. That's what he said. That is all he said. He seemed to have on a vest and not much else. I couldn't really see because he was seated behind the wall. I couldn't see what else he had. But it was a very, very quick sort of routine hearing inside there, and not a lot was discussed while he was up there.
All right. Stephanie Elam reporting live for us from outside that courtroom in Los Angeles. John Miller and Areva Martin, thanks to you as well.